Hi everyone, it's Amanda. Welcome to my first Patreon informational video. Today, or with these informational videos, I'm going to take you through my painting process from start to finish, everything that I do when I'm getting started to do a painting and all the way through to finishing the painting. So the first thing I do is the drawing. And with this, I really like to start out with a good, nice structure of a drawing, which then translates into a nice and structured and nice looking painting. And so yeah, I like to spend a good amount of time figuring out my drawing so that I don't really have to figure that out when I'm painting. I just think it's much nicer to have all of the like drawing structural and like size relationship and like just drawing of things figured out before you even add any kind of paint to your panel or canvas. I just think it helps out a lot in the long run to not just be frustrated with things not turning out how you want them to look. And so with this, I use a grid for my drawing because a grid really helps with showing you the relationship of the object compared to lines. I think it's really helpful because then I'm not having to like spend so much time figuring out the relationship of different objects to other objects, and I can just kind of get the drawing done fairly quickly and with not as much of a headache to it. And with a grid, drawing with a grid helps with not just tracing your reference picture. It gives your painting a lot more of like the hand-drawn effect that I think looks really nice, but it still looks to scale and structured nicely, and not wobbly and wonky and just not drawn well. So yeah, let's get into it. So with that, this is the tracing paper. This is the tracing paper that I like to use. It's just the Starthmar tracing paper. But yeah, this is the tracing paper that I like to use. I just bought this at Michael's and it was fairly inexpensive. Yeah, my camera's kind of zoomed in a lot, so it might be kind of hard for you to... But yeah, that's the tracing paper that I use. And so, with drawing with a grid with the tracing paper, I think I've kind of found a very ingenious way to not have to draw a grid like just a billion times. I've seen a lot of artists, like, they will draw it straight on to the surface that they're drawing onto, and so they won't have any kind of like drawing transfer process. They'll just go straight to putting the grid on their panel or on their canvas, and then they draw right there. I don't like to have to draw a grid a million times, and so what I do let me get to the 12 by 12 size, 10 by 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's the 10 by 10, okay, here's the 12 by 12. So what I will do is I will take my drawing pad and I draw the grid right onto my drawing pad, and then This is just a 12 by 12 grid. I like to draw my grids as a 2 by 2 inch grid because I think 2 inches is just big enough and just small enough so that you can keep track of what squares are which in the grid, and it's not too many itty bitty tiny squares to have to pay attention to. So yeah, that's why I use 2 by 2. And so then I take my tracing paper and I lay it over the grid like this, and you can see the grid through the tracing paper, which is awesome. And so I'll cut the tracing paper down to a little bit bigger than the size of my painting, and then tape it down, and then start drawing straight onto the tracing paper. Okay, so now, since you have a grid onto what you're going to draw onto, or a grid, so yeah, since you have the grid of the drawing paper and then the tracing paper on top of that, you also need a grid on your reference. So now we're going to hop over to my iPad, and I use Procreate, and so what I did is to get this grid on it is I just looked up this picture on Google Images of just a 12 by, so what I did is I went on Google Images and just looked up 2 by 2 grid, and I found this image, and then I zoomed it in to the size of my painting, which this grid is for a 12 by 12, and so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squares. If it's a 2-inch grid, that's 6 times 2, so 12. And so then got that there, and then I just took the stylus and I drew lines on the grid so that it doesn't have the background, and then pop that over the drawing. So there it is, grid on the drawing. Then I just will save that and open that up in my photos. Here it is, and then I'll start drawing. And so a grid is super helpful because it shows you the relationship of the objects to the grid, which then makes it very easy to draw, because then you just kind of look at, here's this avocado, and then the line of it starts a little bit down from this square, and then it goes like that, and then down, and you'll roughly hit the other square around there, hit the other square around there, and then you'll end a teensy bit into these last few squares, and a little bit over into this square on the other side, and then back up. I don't know if that really makes a lot of sense. I can do a little bit more of an in-depth tutorial on how to draw with a grid. But yeah, this is kind of a brief how to draw with a grid. But yeah, I super like drawing like this because, like I said before, it gives a nice hand-drawn effect without it being so messy and a little bit of a headache to get 100% completely right. And so, after you have done your drawing, you're now ready to transfer that onto your palette so now that you've done your drawing, you're ready to take that tracing paper and take that drawing and transfer it onto your panel or canvas. And so with this, here's the painting here's my drawing for the painting that's behind me. So yeah, here's my drawing for the reference picture I was just showing you. So yeah, here it is. Yeah. So when I drew it with pencil, and then when I am tracing it to transfer it onto my panel, I use a micron pen, so that's why it kind of looks dark. But yeah, I use the micron pen so that I can see where I've already traced, and so then I make sure I get everything that I want to trace. So yeah, drawing's ready to transfer, and so then what I do is I go on the other side of it and I rub onto it. I rub onto it this compressed charcoal. I'm pretty sure I just got this at Michael's, so it's pretty accessible to get. But yeah, I'll take one of these sticks and I will rub it, not super heavily, but like just enough all along the back, and then I'll just tape it onto my canvas or panel and start tracing. So yeah, pretty simple and easy hack for not having to draw a grid a billion times. And then since I have my drawing now on this tracing paper, I can use that to transfer onto any other surface if I need to remake the painting or I want to do it differently or whatever. And I guess just lastly, what I do when I am all done with tracing this drawing onto my panel, I'll just take a paper towel and I'll wipe off all of the excess charcoal, just so it's not getting messy all over the place. But then I'll just store this away somewhere else in my studio so that I can use it later if I want to. But yeah, I think that's it for this first informational video. Next time we'll do some painting. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.